He said I had no wife, no kids, no life, but they cheated me and I made them lose everything. I never expected to see her again, not like this. The last time Monica and I had been in the same room, we were signing divorce papers, a bitter formality that finalized what had already been true for years. We were nothing to each other anymore. Our marriage had been over long before the ink dried, but seeing her now, laughing and carefree, felt like reopening a wound I thought had already scarred over. I had only stopped by the restaurant for a quick dinner. Nothing fancy, just a quiet meal to end the day before heading home to enjoy the solitude I had grown accustomed to. The air smelled of sizzling steak and garlic butter, and for a moment, I let myself settle into the comfort of an ordinary evening. But then I heard them. I wasn't even facing their table, yet I recognized her voice immediately. Monica, the woman who had once vowed to love me forever, now sitting across from her new husband, Greg. I wasn't the type to eavesdrop, but they weren't exactly being discreet. The no wife, no kids, no life. Greg's voice cut through the comfortable hum of the restaurant, his tone dripping with condescension. Laughter followed. Monica's laughter. "On just a waste of space," she added, her voice carrying easily across the tables. I felt the room shrink around me, the weight of their words pressing against my chest like a slow, deliberate punch. Other patrons glanced in my direction, some subtly, others not bothering to hide their amusement. The world blurred for a split second, my body reacting faster than my mind, the familiar sting of humiliation creeping up my spine. The old me, the man I used to be when Monica and I were still together, would have lashed out. I would have turned, fists clenched, ready to fire back with words just as sharp, just as cruel. But that man was long gone, buried under the weight of lessons learned. I inhaled deeply, steadying my pulse. I picked up my glass of water, took a slow sip, and set it down with practiced calm. Then I did something they never expected. I smiled, not a smirk, not a forced grin, but a real, slow, knowing smile that made Greg's confidence waver for the briefest moment. Monica, sitting across from him, shifted in her seat, her amusement dimming just slightly. They wanted a reaction. They wanted to see me crumble. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Silently, I reached into my pocket, pulled out my wallet, and placed enough cash on the table to cover my meal. Then, without so much as a glance in their direction, I stood up and walked out of the restaurant. I could still hear their laughter behind me, but there was something different about it now. Forced, hollow. They could keep their moment. Let them think they won. But life has a way of shifting power when you least expect it. 3 days later, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. At first, I ignored it. Why would I have any reason to pick up? I had no interest in hearing whatever nonsense Monica or Greg had to say. But when I checked my voicemail, the tone of their voices was no longer mocking. It was desperate. Monica's voice shook through the speaker. "Please, we need to talk." Then Greg, sounding nothing like the arrogant man from the restaurant, "Pick up, man, it's serious." More missed calls, more messages. Something had happened, and now they needed me. I ignored their calls for as long as I could. At first, it was easy. I'd spent years training myself to unlearn the habit of answering when Monica called, to stop checking for her messages, to erase the instinct of caring about what happened in her life. She had made her choices, and I had made mine. We had walked away from each other, and as far as I was concerned, that chapter was closed. But the calls didn't stop. I would wake up in the morning to find multiple missed calls, my voicemail stacked with desperate messages, their voices practically begging for my attention. Monica's tone was no longer the smug, confident one I had heard at the restaurant. It was frantic, uneasy. "Please, we need to talk." At first, I deleted the messages without listening to them fully. But when the calls kept coming, when Greg, who had sneered at me just days ago, started leaving messages too, curiosity began gnawing at me. Greg, always the arrogant one, sounded different now. His usual bravado was gone, replaced with something I had never expected from him. Fear. Man, pick up, it's serious. We need to talk." I sat with my phone in my hand, debating my next move. I had no obligation to them. Whatever had happened was their problem, and part of me relished the idea of ignoring them the way they had dismissed me. They had humiliated me in public, treating me like I was nothing. And now, just days later, they suddenly needed my help. Still, the sheer volume of their calls made me wonder what could possibly have happened in such a short time to make Greg swallow his pride and reach out to me. Eventually, I picked up when Monica called again. "Hello," I answered, my voice calm, detached. There was silence for a moment, then a sharp inhale. "Thank God," she breathed. "Son, you answered." She sounded nothing like the woman from the restaurant. This Monica was shaken, panicked. "What do you want?" I asked flatly. "Please, we need to meet. It's urgent." I didn't respond right away. I wanted to hear her squirm a little, to let her feel the weight of being the one asking for something. "Why?" I finally asked. She hesitated. I could hear the sound of Greg's voice in the background, low and urgent, like he was whispering instructions. "On board business," she started, then stopped, like she didn't know how to explain. I could hear the tension in her breath, the way her words trembled. This was not a woman calling to boast or gloat. This was someone in real trouble. "On our business is in trouble," she finally admitted. "Oh, serious trouble." I leaned back in my chair, adjusting the phone against my ear, and she exhaled, as if frustrated by my lack of reaction. We need help," she said. I smirked, though she couldn't see it. "And you think I can help?" Silence. Then Greg's voice cut in, louder now. "Look, man, we're in deep and you're involved whether you like it or not." I frowned. "Excuse me?" Monica took the phone back. We need to explain in person." I considered hanging up. Part of me wanted to. They deserved to stew in whatever mess they had gotten themselves into. But Greg's words stuck with me. "Ice, you're involved whether you like it or not." I sighed. "Fine. Where?" They named a small cafe on the other side of town, far enough away that it seemed like they didn't want to be seen meeting with me. That only made me more curious. The next morning I arrived at the cafe and found them already seated in a corner booth, looking exhausted and jittery. Monica looked pale, her usual polished appearance slightly frayed. Her hair wasn't as neatly styled, her hands fidgeting with the napkin in front of her. Greg, normally all swagger and confidence, sat stiffly, eyes darting around like he expected someone to ambush him. I took my time ordering a coffee before sliding into the booth across from them. They both stared at me, expectant. "All right," I said, taking a sip of my drink. "What's so urgent?" Greg cleared his throat, glancing at Monica before speaking. "We're having financial difficulties." I raised an eyebrow. "Is that supposed to mean something to me?" Monica swallowed hard. "It's bad. The business—" She hesitated, gripping the napkin tighter. "We're on the brink of collapse." I tilted my head. See, now I thought Greg was some financial genius. Greg winced at the sarcasm but didn't have the energy to argue. Instead, he leaned forward, his voice low. "There's more," he said. "It's not just the business, it's the loans." Something in his tone made me pause. "What loans?" I asked, a slow unease creeping up my spine. Monica bit her lip, her eyes filled with something dangerously close to guilt. She inhaled shakily before saying, "You were listed as a cosigner." The words didn't register immediately. I blinked. "What?" Monica looked away. "On some of our loans." A strange ringing filled my ears, the kind that comes when your brain refuses to process something shocking. "I never co-signed anything," I said slowly. She winced. The ringing grew louder. "What are you saying?" I demanded. Greg shifted uncomfortably. "Oh, look, man, it's—" I turned to Monica, my stomach twisting. "Oh, tell me exactly what you mean." She took a deep breath. "There are multiple loans, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they all have your name on them." My pulse skyrocketed. "That's impossible. I never signed anything." Greg exhaled sharply, avoiding my eyes. "Yeah, well," it clicked. I straightened, my entire body going ice cold. "And you forged my signature," I whispered. Neither of them denied it. The cafe suddenly felt suffocating, my breath coming in short bursts, my hands curling into fists. "How much?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. Monica hesitated. "Show." "How much?" I snapped. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Over 400,000. I let out a slow, humorless laugh. $400,000 in my name. I leaned back, exhaling sharply. Greg cleared his throat. "Look, man, it's not as bad as it sounds. If you just help us out—" I raised a hand, cutting him off. "Oh, let me get this straight," I said, my voice deadly calm. "Then you both humiliated me in public, laughed at me, called me a waste of space, and now, after stealing my identity and dragging my name into your mess, you expect me to help?" Neither of them spoke. I shook my head, gripping my coffee cup so tightly it might have shattered. "Unbelievable," I muttered. I stood up, pushing my chair back with slow deliberation. Monica reached for my arm. "Please, if you don't help, we're finished." I pulled away. "So you already are." Then I walked out, leaving them sitting in their own ruin. They had stolen from me. Now it was time to make them pay. I didn't go home right away after storming out of the cafe. My hands were still shaking, my mind racing through every possible explanation, every desperate attempt to convince myself that what I had just heard wasn't real. But the truth was clear. Monica and Greg had forged my signature. They had stolen my identity, my credit, and my name to fund their failing business and lavish lifestyle. $400,000. The number echoed in my head like a death sentence. I climbed into my car and gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I fought to take deep, measured breaths, trying to slow my pounding heart. The fury I felt was unlike anything I had ever experienced. This wasn't just betrayal, this was a crime. I needed answers, I needed proof, and most of all, I needed to know exactly how deep this mess went. So instead of going home, I drove straight to my lawyer's office. Mr. Coleman had been my attorney for years. He was the kind of man who never panicked, never showed emotion, and always knew the best course of action. When I barged into his office without an appointment, his secretary barely had time to react before I was already inside, pacing in front of his desk. He adjusted his glasses and leaned back in his chair. "This must be serious," he said, eyeing me carefully. I dropped into the seat across from him, exhaling sharply. "It's beyond serious. I need you to check something for me." "Oh," he nodded. "Oh, go on." I rubbed a hand over my face before meeting his gaze. "And I think my ex-wife and her husband forged my signature on a series of loans. I need you to find out if that's true." His expression didn't change, but I saw the sharpness in his eyes. How much are we talking?" I clenched my jaw. "400,000. For the first time, Mr. Coleman looked surprised. He straightened in his seat. "Well, that's a significant amount." No kidding," I sighed. "When they told me outright, but I need hard proof." He grabbed a legal pad and started making notes. "Did they say which financial institutions?" I recounted everything Monica had told me at the cafe, my voice growing angrier with each detail. When I finished, he nodded and picked up his phone. "I'll make some calls," he said. "Give me a few hours." I nodded, pushing to my feet. I'll wait. Go home, get some rest," he suggested. I gave him a sharp look. "I'm not going anywhere until I know exactly how deep this goes." Mr. Coleman didn't argue. He simply nodded and got to work. 3 hours later, he had my answer, and it was worse than I imagined. I sat across from him as he laid out the evidence. Loan documents, bank records, everything tied to my name but without my consent. My signature had been forged on multiple contracts, and the loans had been secured over the past 2 years. 2 years. That meant Monica and Greg had been stealing from me even before I ran into them at the restaurant. They had been siphoning money, taking out loans under my name, and counting on the fact that I would never check. I felt physically sick. "And they're screwed," Mr. Coleman said simply. "And then they know it. That's why they reached out to you." I clenched my fists. "How bad is it for me?" he exhaled. "Right now, the bank sees you as the responsible party. Legally, those debts are tied to your name." I gritted my teeth. "But it's fraud." "Exactly," he leaned forward. "And that's what we'll prove." I let out a breath, trying to process everything. "What's our next step?" First, we freeze any accounts tied to your name that could be used for further fraud. Then we dispute every single loan with hard proof of forgery. The banks will conduct their own investigations, but with the right legal action, we can make sure the debt falls on them, not you." I nodded. "And Monica and Greg?" Mr. Coleman's lips curled slightly. "Well, no, they're in for a world of trouble." I let the words sink in. They thought they could steal from me and walk away. They thought they could manipulate me into bailing them out. They were wrong, very wrong. I left Mr. Coleman's office feeling more in control than I had since that humiliating night at the restaurant. But I wasn't done yet. I needed more than just legal action. I needed the truth. So, I hired a private investigator. It took less than a day for the investigator to uncover even more dirt. Greg hadn't just forged my signature. He had been embezzling money from their own business, shifting funds around, creating fake expenses, and covering it up with forged paperwork. And Monica knew. That was the part that made my stomach twist. She wasn't an innocent bystander in this. She had signed off on multiple fraudulent deals. She had enabled it. Had she ever loved me, or had I just been a stepping stone in her game of lies? The more I learned, the angrier I became. I had spent years blaming myself for our marriage failing, wondering if I had been the problem. But now I saw the truth. She had always been this way, and I had been too blind to see it. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Monica. I let it go to voicemail. Then Greg called. I ignored that too. Then came the texts. "Monica, please, can we talk?" "Greg, we can fix this. Don't do anything rash. Monica, son, I made a mistake, okay? But we can figure this out. Greg, come on, man, you don't need to get lawyers involved." I laughed bitterly at that one. Too late. I typed a single response. "See you in court." I imagined the look on their faces when they read it. The panic, the regret. Good. They had stolen from me. They had humiliated me. And now they were about to face real consequences. I didn't waste any time. After everything I had uncovered, the forged signatures, the stolen money, the embezzlement, I knew I needed to confront them. Not through phone calls, not through text messages, face to face. I wanted to see the panic in their eyes when they realized they had lost. So, I arranged a meeting at Monica's house, the house she had once shared with me before she decided I wasn't good enough anymore. It was fitting, really. The same home she had flaunted in my face when she left me was now the place where I would destroy the illusion she and Greg had built. When I pulled up to the driveway, I took a deep breath and steadied myself. Stay calm, stay in control. I wasn't here to argue, I was here to end this. Monica opened the door, her face tight with anxiety. "Oh, came," she said, almost breathless. I stepped inside without acknowledging her, my eyes scanning the house. It looked different now, less put together, as if stress had drained the life out of it. Greg was already in the living room, standing stiffly by the couch. He looked awful. His usual arrogance had been stripped away, replaced by something that almost resembled fear. Good. I pulled the bank documents from my pocket and tossed them onto the coffee table. "And let's talk about these loans," I said, my voice sharp and controlled. Monica flinched at the sound of the paper hitting the table. Greg remained silent, his jaw clenched. I crossed my arms. "Che, go on. Explain to me why my name is on this mess." Monica's hands trembled as she picked up the papers, flipping through them as if she hadn't seen them before. "It's not—" She started, then stopped, her voice faltering. Greg, on the other hand, had the audacity to roll his eyes. "It's just paperwork," he said, his tone dismissive, "since you wouldn't have used that money anyway." My body went rigid. I had expected excuses, lies, begging even, but this? This was pure arrogance. I took a step closer, forcing Greg to meet my gaze. "When you stole from me," I said, my voice dangerously low, "and forged my signature and racked up $400,000 of debt in my name, and you think that's just paperwork?" Monica placed a hand on my arm. "Please, let's just talk." I pulled away. "Talk? Now you want to talk? You had plenty of chances before you dragged me into this disaster." Greg scoffed, but I could see the way his hands fidgeted, the slight twitch in his jaw. He was nervous. I leaned in, lowering my voice, "And just made the biggest mistake of your life." His cockiness faltered. "Look, man, this doesn't have to go legal." I chuckled darkly. "Oh, it's already way past that point." I turned to Monica. "Oh, few knew, didn't you? About the forgeries, about the embezzlement." She swallowed hard, unable to meet my eyes. "Hey, tell me the truth, Monica," I pressed. "So how long have you known?" She hesitated, then, in a barely audible voice, she admitted, "Since last year." A slow, bitter smile stretched across my face. "So, while you were laughing at me in that restaurant, you were already knee-deep in this mess." She didn't answer. She didn't have to. I straightened, exhaling sharply. "Here's what's going to happen." Greg shifted. "You're going to help us, right?" I laughed, an actual genuine laugh. "Hope you?" I repeated, shaking my head. "Oh no, I'm going to bury you." Greg's face darkened. "What the hell does that mean?" I stepped toward the coffee table and picked up the documents. "And it means my lawyer has already frozen every account tied to my name. It means I've disputed every single loan you took out. And it means the bank will be launching a full investigation into who forged these signatures." Monica let out a shaky breath. "Please, don't do this." "Oh, I'm just getting started," I interrupted. "Because on top of that, I've hired a private investigator, and guess what he found?" Greg stiffened. I smiled. "That little embezzlement scheme you've been running, the one you thought no one would catch." Monica's eyes widened. I know everything," I cut her off. "And soon, so will the authorities." Greg's face turned red. "You can't prove anything." I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. A second later, an audio recording started playing. Greg's own voice filled the room, so I shifted the money around so it wouldn't get flagged. Just a few fake invoices, nothing serious. His face drained of color. I ended the recording and pocketed my phone. "Oh, I can prove it." Silence filled the room. Monica looked at Greg, realization dawning on her face. "Oh, you lied to me," she whispered. Greg glared at her. "You're no saint either, Monica." I watched them unravel, their trust in each other crumbling right before my eyes. Finally, Greg turned to me. "What do you want?" he asked through clenched teeth. I smirked. "Oh, justice." Monica let out a strangled sound. "Tis will ruin us." I met her gaze. "When you ruined yourselves." She reached for my hand, tears forming in her eyes. "I made a mistake." I pulled away. "No. A mistake is spilling coffee on someone's shirt. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. What you did was calculated." Her lip trembled. "Please." I took a slow step back. I don't have any more sympathy left for you, Monica. You lost that the moment you signed my name on those papers. Greg, now visibly sweating, ran a hand through his hair. If we go down, you'll go down too. I smirked. Wrong. Because while I've been clearing my name, you two have been digging your own graves. I turned and walked toward the door, pausing just before stepping outside. You should start looking for a lawyer, I said over my shoulder. You're going to need one. And with that, I walked out, leaving them to face the destruction they had created. They thought they could get away with it. They thought I would just roll over and take it. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. I drove home with a storm brewing inside me. I had confronted them, made it clear that their lies had unraveled, but I wasn't satisfied yet, not even close. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about anger anymore. It was about justice. Monica and Greg thought they could ruin my life, steal my identity, and then waltz away without consequences. They had laughed at me, humiliated me, and expected me to be too weak to fight back. They were wrong. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my mind was already working through my next steps. I wasn't just going to clear my name, I was going to destroy them. The next morning, I was in my lawyer's office before the sun was fully up. Mr. Coleman barely raised an eyebrow when I walked in unannounced, dropping a thick folder of documents onto his desk. I want everything locked down, I said, my voice calm but firm. On every bank account, every asset tied to my name, frozen. I want disputes filed with every financial institution that's been affected by this fraud. He adjusted his glasses, scanning the papers. AI already anticipated this. We've got the disputes in motion, and I've sent legal notices to the banks demanding they investigate the forged signatures. You should start seeing results within the next few weeks. That wasn't fast enough, and not good enough, I said, leaning forward. So I want pressure applied. I want them feeling the heat now. Mr. Coleman met my gaze, a small smirk forming. Oh, you really want to go after them, don't you? I didn't blink, but didn't hesitate to ruin me. I won't hesitate to return the favor. He nodded. And we don't just dispute the loans. We bring criminal charges. The words sent a chill down my spine, but I nodded. Do it. He picked up the phone and started making calls. I wasn't done yet. After leaving the law office, I met with the private investigator I had hired, a no-nonsense man named Ryan, who had already dug up more dirt on Greg in 2 days than Monica probably knew in 2 years. Ryan slid a manila folder across the table. "Oh, and you were right," he said simply. I flipped through the contents, my stomach twisting with dark satisfaction. Greg hadn't just forged my signature. He had been embezzling from their business for years. Fake invoices, phantom employees, money funneled into private accounts. The best part? Monica had signed off on most of it. She knew, I muttered, staring at a document with her signature at the bottom. Ryan nodded. She might try to play the victim, but she was in on it. She just didn't realize how deep Greg's schemes ran. I closed the folder and exhaled. I want this sent to the authorities the moment the banks confirm the forgery. I want Greg and Monica facing criminal investigations. Ryan smirked. Already working on it. By the end of the day, the trap was set. All bank accounts tied to my name frozen. Loans under my forged signature disputed with proof. A private investigator hired and delivering results. Then I made one more move. I contacted Monica's parents. It was late when I finally picked up the phone and dialed the number I hadn't called in years. Monica's father answered, his voice groggy with sleep. "Hello? Mr. Larson," I said, my voice steady. "It's me." There was a pause, then cautiously, "What do you want?" I leaned against my desk. "Did Monica ever tell you she and Greg took out $400,000 in loans using my name?" Silence. Then a slow, measured exhale. "What did you just say?" I repeated it, every single detail, the forged signatures, the fraudulent loans, the embezzlement. By the time I finished, I could hear the fury in his breathing. "So and she swore to us they were doing well," he muttered. When Greg convinced us he was some business genius. "He's a con artist," I said flatly. And Monica went along with it. More silence. Then, in a tight voice, "What do you plan to do?" I let my next words hang heavy in the air. "And I'm making sure they pay for what they did." Monica's father didn't argue. Instead, he said to keep me updated. Then he hung up. One by one, the walls were closing in on them. 2 days later, it all started unraveling. I got a call from my lawyer. "You're panicking," Mr. Coleman said, his tone almost amused. "Monica and Greg have been trying to access funds, but the banks are blocking them. They're realizing they can't touch any of the accounts that have your name attached to them." I grinned. "Good." "Not just that," he continued. "The bank has officially flagged the loans as fraudulent. They're launching their own investigation now, and once they confirm the signatures were forged, they'll pass the case to law enforcement. My heartbeat steadied, which means Greg and Monica are looking at serious legal trouble. I leaned back in my chair, feeling a sense of grim satisfaction. They deserved every second of it. That night, my phone rang again. Monica. I let it go to voicemail. Then Greg called. I ignored that too. Then came the texts. Monica, please, we need to talk. Greg, we can fix this. Don't do anything rash. Monica, I made a mistake, okay? But we can figure this out. Greg, come on, man, you don't need to get the police involved. I laughed bitterly. Too late. I typed a single response. Talk to my lawyer. Within seconds, Monica's typing bubble appeared, then stopped, then started again, then stopped. I put my phone on silent and poured myself a drink. They thought they could take everything from me. They thought I would roll over and let them get away with it. They had underestimated me. Now they were done. The morning after I sent that final text, I woke up to find over a dozen missed calls from Monica. Greg had tried calling too, though he didn't leave a voicemail. I wasn't surprised. They were desperate now. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee, scrolling through the notifications. Text after text, Monica pleading, bargaining, trying to convince me to talk. Monica, please, just hear me out. Monica, I know you're angry, but we can fix this. Monica, don't let it go this far. It doesn't have to be like this. She still didn't get it. I took a slow sip of my coffee before typing my response. Kent's already gone this far. A few seconds later, the typing bubble appeared, then it stopped, and then my phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. I wasn't interested in hearing whatever excuse she had prepared. She wasn't sorry, she was just scared. Good. I had no intention of backing down. By the afternoon, my lawyer called. I tried to take out more loans, Mr. Coleman said, sounding amused. The banks rejected them immediately. I exhaled, shaking my head. But I still don't get it. When they're panicking, he confirmed. When bank is investigating every single loan tied to your name. The fraud claims have been escalated, and Monica and Greg's accounts are officially frozen. I felt a dark satisfaction settle in my chest. Then that means they can't touch a single dollar, right? Not a cent. Perfect. Kent, and they're going to lose everything, I muttered, more to myself than to him. Mr. Coleman's voice was measured. Yes, they will. I should have felt guilty, but I didn't. They had brought this on themselves. A few hours later, my phone rang again. This time, I picked up. Please, Monica's voice was shaky, her desperation spilling through the phone. Just listen. I stayed silent, waiting. She sniffled. Haunted house. The bank is threatening foreclosure. I didn't respond. She inhaled sharply, her voice breaking. When they're saying we have 30 days before we lose everything. I tilted my head, swirling my drink in my hand. And why exactly is that my problem? She let out a soft, broken sob. I waited, but she didn't finish her sentence. Say it, Monica, I pressed. Why tell me why you think I should care? More silence, then a defeated whisper, 'cause I messed up. I closed my eyes, letting her words settle. She messed up. That was the understatement of the century. Do you even realize what you did? I asked, my voice eerily calm. She sniffled again. I do now. Oh, you don't, I said sharply. Because if you did, you wouldn't be begging for my help. You wouldn't be asking me to clean up the mess you created. Please, we have nowhere else to turn, she whispered. I exhaled through my nose. What about Greg? He seemed pretty damn confident the last time I saw him. Her breath hitched. She hesitated. He left. I blinked. Oh, excuse me? She let out a bitter laugh, half choked by tears. And as soon as he realized we were going under, he packed his bags and left, took what little cash we had left and disappeared. I sat back in my chair, stunned. Greg had abandoned her. I had expected him to fight, to lash out, to try and weasel his way out of the situation, but this was worse. Monica was alone. For a moment I almost felt something close to pity, almost. But then I remembered the restaurant, the laughter, the humiliation. She had chosen Greg. She had laughed at me, called me a waste of space, while standing beside a man who was now nothing more than a coward running for the hills. Now you understand, I murmured. She sucked in a breath. Understand what? What it feels like to be abandoned, I said. To have everything you built taken away, to be humiliated. She let out a shaky exhale. And you did this to yourself, Monica. Her breath hitched again. Oh, goodbye. Then I hung up. That night I got a text from an unknown number. Greg. Son, I hope you're happy, man. You ruined us. I laughed. Actually laughed. I ruined them? I typed a response. You did that all on your own. I never heard from him again. Within a week, their business was officially shut down. The bank seized their assets. Their house was now on the brink of foreclosure. Greg had vanished and Monica was left with nothing. But it got worse. Greg's boss had found out about the fraud. The moment word got out that Greg had forged signatures and embezzled money, he was fired on the spot. As for Monica, her family turned against her when they found out the truth. Her own parents refused to help. She had nowhere to go, no money, no husband, no friends, no life. And she had no one to blame but herself. A few days later, I got one final voicemail from her. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Please, have nothing left. Help me." I listened to the message twice, then, with a slow, satisfied smirk, I deleted it. No reply, no second chances. She was officially nothing to me. She had laughed at my pain, and now she was living in hers. Karma had finally done its job. The moment I deleted Monica's voicemail, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just about clearing my name anymore. This was about ending them completely. Monica and Greg had spent years scheming, lying, and stealing. They had humiliated me, stolen from me, and expected to walk away unscathed. Now I had the power, and I intended to use it. The next morning, I met with Mr. Coleman. He had been keeping a close eye on the case, monitoring the bank's investigation and handling every legal move I threw his way. Now, with Monica and Greg officially drowning, it was time for the final nail in their coffin. "And they're finished," Mr. Coleman said, sipping his coffee as he leaned back in his chair. Monica can't access her accounts, Greg is off the grid, and the banks are gearing up to press charges. I nodded. "That's not enough." He raised an eyebrow. "Oh? Then I want to make sure they don't recover from this," I said calmly. "And I want the fraud charges to stick. I want Monica to feel the consequences of her choices for the rest of her life. And as for Greg," I smirked, "I want to make sure he never scams anyone again." Mr. Coleman grinned. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" I didn't answer right away. I wasn't a cruel person. I wasn't doing this for fun. But after everything they had done to me, after years of deception, after the public humiliation, they deserved every bit of this. So I simply said, "One, they did this to themselves." Mr. Coleman nodded. "All right, let's talk about the final moves. Step 1, the criminal charges." The bank had already launched a fraud investigation, but Mr. Coleman suggested we apply more pressure. "We'll be filing formal charges against Greg and Monica," he explained. "Forgery, forgery, 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 fraud, identity theft, the works." I tapped my fingers against the desk. "What kind of sentence are we looking at if convicted?" He smirked. "They could be looking at years behind bars." I exhaled, my chest tightening with satisfaction. "To it." Step 2, the family betrayal. I had already contacted Monica's father before, but now it was time to deliver the final blow. I sent him everything, all the bank documents, the proof of forgery, the fraud reports, the evidence that Monica had signed off on the embezzlement. His response was instant, since she swore she had nothing to do with this. "I can't believe it." I replied, "She lied to you, just like she lied to me." A long pause, then, "She's on her own." It was done. Her own family had turned against her. Monica had officially lost everyone. Step 3, the public exposure. Monica and Greg had built their entire life on deception, manipulating people into believing they were successful, that they were better than everyone else. Time to shatter that illusion. A few days later, a local reporter reached out to me. "I heard about the fraud case," he said. "Would you be willing to share your side of the story?" I didn't even hesitate. I handed him every document I had. 2 days later, the headline hit the news. A local couple exposed in $400,000 fraud scandal. Investigation underway. The article detailed everything. The forged signatures, the embezzlement, the lawsuits, the impending criminal charges. Monica and Greg were now publicly ruined. Their neighbors whispered behind their backs. Their former friends cut ties. No one wanted to be associated with them anymore. They had gone from social climbers to cautionary tales. Step 4, the ultimate betrayal. Greg had been quiet for days, too quiet. Then, out of nowhere, he called me. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. I picked up. "Hello." A long silence, then, "Can you win?" I blinked, caught off guard by how defeated he sounded. "Excuse me?" I said, leaning back in my chair. "You win," Greg repeated. I don't know what else to do," I smirked. "And could always turn yourself in." He let out a bitter laugh. "Yeah, right." I waited. Then he said something that surprised me. "I'll make a deal." I raised an eyebrow. "One deal? Ein deal? And I'll testify against Monica," he said. "I'll give the police everything, proof of the fraud, the embezzlement, all of it. Just help me out of this." I nearly laughed. Greg was selling out Monica to save himself. I should have seen it coming. The moment things got too messy, he did what he always did, ran. I exhaled, pretending to think about it. And why should I trust you? Because, he said quietly, I have proof that Monica was the one who came up with the idea to forge your signature. My breath hitched. Greg had evidence. This was better than I could have hoped for. I smiled. Send me the proof, then we'll talk. A minute later, my phone buzzed with an email. I opened it. Attached were emails, text messages, and even a voice recording of Monica discussing the forged loans. She had orchestrated it. Greg was guilty, but Monica had been the mastermind. I let out a slow, victorious breath. This was it. The final piece. I emailed everything to Mr. Coleman. His response was immediate. With this, Monica won't just lose everything. She could face serious prison time. I stared at the message for a moment before replying, make sure she does. By the end of the week, Monica was officially under investigation. Greg, desperate to save himself, turned witness and cut a deal. With his testimony and the evidence I had, Monica was facing a long, uphill legal battle. Her family wouldn't help her, her friends had abandoned her, and Greg, he had thrown her under the bus. She had nothing left. Meanwhile, I walked away from the entire disaster untouched. My name was cleared, my finances were secure, and best of all, I had watched Monica and Greg destroy themselves brick by brick. They had built their life on lies. Now they had no life at all. I stood in my living room, sipping my drink as the news played on the TV. Monica's mugshot flashed across the screen, and arrest warrant issued for woman involved in fraud case. I exhaled slowly. It was over. I wasn't a waste of space. I wasn't the loser they had mocked. I was the only one who had ever truly stood on his own. And now I was free. It started with whispers. Monica and Greg had spent years curating an image of wealth, success, and superiority. They wanted people to envy them, to believe they had it all. They threw extravagant parties dressed in designer clothes and made sure to remind everyone that they were better. But once the fraud hit the news, everything they had built came crumbling down. At first, it was just a few rumors. Neighbors noticing that their cars had been repossessed, whispers at the grocery store about why Greg suddenly wasn't at work. But then the headlines dropped, and local couple exposed in massive fraud scandal. Their faces were everywhere, social media, news websites, even local TV stations. The story spread like wildfire. Monica and Greg had been the kind of people who thrived on social validation. Their reputation was their currency. So, when the truth came out, when people saw them for what they really were, it hit them harder than any lawsuit ever could. I didn't have to dig for updates. The news came to me. My phone buzzed constantly, old acquaintances, former coworkers, even strangers reaching out to talk about what happened. Dude, did you see the news? Monica is finished, one text read. Another message from an old friend, so Greg was just a con artist all along? Should have figured, he always seemed shady. And then my personal favorite, from Monica's own best friend, and I had no idea she was capable of something like this. I replied, "Once really, because I did." I had no interest in reaching out to Monica, but I knew exactly what was happening on her end. She was being erased. First, her social media accounts disappeared, probably because the comments were brutal. People weren't holding back. I found a few screenshots online before she deleted everything. User 1. Imagine forging your ex-husband's signature and then laughing at him in public. This is karma. User 2. Monica and Greg really thought they could scam their way through life. LOL. Enjoy prison. User 3. They used to act like they were better than everyone. Now they can't even pay rent. I won't lie, reading those comments felt good, because Monica and Greg had done this to themselves. They had mocked me, belittled me, stolen from me, and expected no consequences. Now they were getting exactly what they deserved. Greg had been silent since our last conversation. He had thrown Monica under the bus, cutting a deal with the authorities to save himself. But the funny thing about snakes, they always end up biting themselves. A few days after the news broke, I got a call from my private investigator, Ryan. And Greg's in trouble, he said, amusement in his voice. I leaned back in my chair. Tell me something I don't know, Ryan chuckled. And his deal with the authorities got leaked. Now all his old friends, the ones he scammed money from, are turning against him. I smirked. So the rats are jumping ship? Exactly. I wasn't surprised. Greg had used people his entire life, lied to them, scammed them, manipulated them. Now they were making sure he paid for it. His entire social circle cut him off. Old business associates gone, friends disappeared. Even the people who had once defended him were now going out of their way to distance themselves. It wasn't just about avoiding legal trouble. It was about self-preservation. No one wanted to be associated with a con artist. Greg had lost everything, and the best part? He had done it all to himself. Monica, on the other hand, was still trying to fight. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that she was begging people for help. She went to her parents first, but they refused to even speak to her. Her father had made it clear, "You lied to us. You stole from your ex-husband. You're on your own." Then she tried her old friends. One by one, they turned her away. No one wanted to help a fraud. No one wanted to touch the scandal she had created. Even the people who had once admired her, the women who used to envy her, were now mocking her downfall. I overheard a conversation in a cafe one morning, two women whispering at the next table. "Did you hear about Monica?" one of them said. "Won the fraud case?" "Well, of course. Everyone's talking about it. She used to act like she was so perfect, and now she's being investigated." The other woman laughed. "And I guess she wasn't as smart as she thought she was." I took a sip of my coffee, fighting back a smirk. The final blow came a week later. Monica and Greg were already broke, their business shut down, their assets frozen. Then the eviction notice hit. Their house, Monica's house, was officially being seized by the bank. And the best part? A local news station filmed the whole thing. I watched from my phone as the footage played. Monica standing outside in her pajamas, her face pale and drawn as movers carried out her furniture. Reporters swarmed her. "Monica, do you have any comments about the fraud case? Do you regret your actions?" She didn't answer. She just stood there, shoulders slumped, watching as everything she had stolen was taken away from her. Gone were the designer clothes, the smug attitude, the superiority. Now she was just another disgraced fraudster. No friends, no family, no money, no power. She was nothing. That night my phone buzzed one last time, a message from Monica, "You destroyed me." I stared at the screen, letting her words sink in. Destroyed her? She had destroyed herself. She had stolen from me, humiliated me, used me, and when it all came crashing down, she wanted to blame me. I chuckled. Then slowly I typed my response, "No, Monica, you did that all on your own." And with that, I blocked her number. I was done. No more second chances, no more looking back. For the first time in years, I was free. Monica was finished. Her name was in the headlines, her face plastered across every news outlet. Once the woman who thrived on attention and admiration, she was now the town's biggest scandal. I imagined how it felt for her, walking down the street, feeling the weight of every whisper, every judgmental stare. She used to strut around with confidence, head held high, like she was above everyone. Now she probably kept her head down, hoping no one recognized her. But they did. Oh, they did. And no one felt sorry for her. A week after the eviction footage went viral, I got an email from Ryan, my private investigator. "Well, check this out. You're going to love it." Attached was a newspaper article, on former businesswoman Monica Larson reportedly living with relatives after fraud scandal. I leaned back in my chair, reading every word with slow satisfaction. Monica was officially broke, her accounts frozen, her credit destroyed. No apartment would rent to her, no bank would lend her $1. She had nothing left. And Greg? He was worse off. Ryan had included another attachment, one of Greg's mugshots. I grinned. Turns out, Greg's plea deal fell through. He had agreed to testify against Monica, but the authorities weren't done with him either. His embezzlement had gone deeper than anyone expected. More victims came forward, more businesses revealed missing funds. His deal was revoked, and now Greg was awaiting trial. Prison wasn't a possibility anymore. It was a guarantee. I knew Monica was out of options when I received one last voicemail. I shouldn't have listened to it. I should have just deleted it like the others, but curiosity got the better of me, so I pressed play. Her voice was unrecognizable, weak, desperate. "Please," she whispered, "I don't have anywhere to go." I stared at the phone, listening to her break. She let out a shaky breath. "You have every right to hate me. I know that, but A sniffle. "So I don't know what to do." Another pause, then softer, softer. "I wish I had chosen you." That was the moment I smiled, because I realized something. It wasn't just about the fraud. It wasn't just about the money. It was the fact that Monica had thrown me away. She had laughed in my face, called me a waste of space, and chose Greg over me. And now she was alone, broke, humiliated, with no one to turn to. I didn't respond to her voicemail. I didn't call her back. Instead, I let her sit in exactly what she created. Greg was arrested on a Tuesday morning. I found out through an article forwarded to me by an old friend. The headline was brutal. Generous scammer turned fraudster Greg Matters taken into custody after financial crimes exposed. I clicked on the article, scanning through the details. He had been arrested at his motel. Apparently, after ditching Monica, he had been bouncing from place to place, trying to hide. But the moment his fraudulent activities came to light, people started talking. The motel manager tipped off the police, and now Greg was facing up to 15 years in prison. I let out a slow breath, setting my phone down. That was it. Greg had spent years thinking he was untouchable. Now he was just another criminal in an orange jumpsuit. 2 days later, Monica sent an email. I almost ignored it, but then I saw the subject line, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but..." I opened it. Her message was long, filled with excuses and apologies. "I know I did terrible things. I don't expect you to ever talk to me again, but I need to say this. I messed up. I let my greed and pride ruin everything. I thought Greg was the better choice. I thought money and success mattered more than love and loyalty. I was wrong. I see that now. I see everything now." I stared at the email for a long time. Then, without responding, I deleted it. Because she didn't deserve closure. She didn't deserve a final conversation. She didn't deserve anything. 1 month later, with Monica and Greg officially out of my life, I finally felt free. The bank had cleared my name, my credit was restored, and best of all, I had won. Not just legally, not just financially, but emotionally. Because no matter what happened next, Monica and Greg would never recover from this. They had spent years looking down on me. Now they were beneath me. No house, no money, no friends, no life. And as for me, I was finally moving forward. I wasn't a waste of space. I was the only one who had ever truly stood on his own. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. The storm had passed. For the first time in what felt like forever, I woke up without tension coiled in my chest. No lawsuits hanging over my head. No fraudulent loans threatening to ruin me. No Monica or Greg lurking in the shadows waiting to drag me down again. I was free. But freedom wasn't just about winning, it was about starting over, and that's exactly what I planned to do. I took one last look at the old case files, the newspaper clippings, the emails from my lawyer confirming the final steps of the legal process. Everything was officially wrapped up. Greg was behind bars, his deal having completely collapsed. Monica, she was just a forgotten name now. She had tried to reach out again, one last desperate attempt to reconnect. I never read the message. Instead, I blocked her number, her email, every possible way she could contact me. She no longer existed in my world. I packed up the documents, the proof of their downfall, and shoved them into a box. Then I drove to the nearest dumpster and threw it all away. They had stolen enough of my time, they weren't getting another second. I decided it was time to move. The house I had lived in for years held too many memories, both good and bad. I needed something new, something that didn't remind me of Monica's laughter echoing down the hallway, or the nights I spent agonizing over everything I'd lost. So I sold it. Just like that. The real estate agent was surprised at how quickly I made my decision, but I didn't hesitate. A month later, I had a new place, a sleek, modern condo overlooking the city. Nothing fancy, but perfect for someone ready to move forward. As I unpacked, I realized something strange. I felt lighter, like I had been carrying extra weight for years without realizing it. Monica, Greg, the betrayal, the humiliation, it was gone. I was starting over, and it felt damn good. With the distractions behind me, I finally had time to focus on my own life, and for the first time, I thrived. My business took off. Without Monica draining me financially, without the constant stress weighing me down, I had the energy to invest in my work again. Clients noticed the change. My productivity skyrocketed. My income tripled in a matter of months. Success had always been possible for me. I had just been dragged down by the wrong people. Now I was unstoppable. One evening, I was at a cafe sipping my coffee, enjoying the silence, when I heard a familiar name. "Did you hear about Monica?" I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. But I listened. A group of women sat a few tables away, deep in conversation. "She's been couch hopping for months," one of them said. "And no one wants to help her. Even her own family won't take her in." I stared at my coffee, letting the words settle. "Oh, she had it all," another woman scoffed. "And now she's nothing. Nothing." That word echoed in my mind. It should have made me feel victorious. After all, Monica had once mocked me, called me a waste of space. Now she was living out her own insult. But instead of feeling triumph, I felt nothing. She was irrelevant to me now. I had moved on, and she was just a cautionary tale. I finished my coffee, stood up, and walked out without looking back. One evening, I found myself at a networking event, something I used to avoid. But this time, something was different. I was confident, relaxed, open. I struck up conversations effortlessly, no longer weighed down by the past. And that's when I met her. Not another Monica, not someone flashy, materialistic, or shallow. Just real. She was smart, driven, and nothing like the people I had once surrounded myself with. For the first time, I wasn't looking over my shoulder, waiting for betrayal. I was simply enjoying the moment. We exchanged numbers, and for the first time in a long time, I felt excited about the future. One night, I stood on my new balcony, looking out over the city lights. I had been through hell. I had lost everything. But in losing, I had gained more than I ever imagined. I had gained clarity. I had gained self-respect. I had gained peace. And most importantly, I had learned a lesson I would never forget. Some people will betray you, use you, and laugh at your downfall. But karma is patient, and when it hits, it's brutal. Monica and Greg had built their lives on lies. Now they had no life at all. But me? I had rebuilt. I had thrived. And for the first time in a long time, I was truly, finally happy.